to the General Future Podcast, episode number 2. Thank you very much for tuning in again. If you're watching this on YouTube, Jesus Christ, I can't turn this music off. All right, here we go. Got it. Sorry about that. I'm working on this stuff as I go. So, like I was saying, welcome to episode number 2. Today's December 15th. It's a Friday, 2023. You know what that means. Actually, the only people that know what this means is myself and Sierra. Today was actually my dog Margot's 10th birthday. Everyone clap. Thank you very much. So, yeah, little Margot, a little black terrier. I'll put a picture up on the screen there. She is a mutt, has crazy anxiety issues. Sierra and I adopted Margot when we were living in New York. We had just moved to Ridgewood, Queens after living in Chinatown for about a year. And once we had moved to our Ridgewood apartment, we thought we were going to try to settle down and not go out as much, be a little bit more responsible, and see if we could live a normal human life in New York instead of being absolute just wild animals, just roaming the streets, getting into all sorts of trouble. But so we had moved to Ridgewood, Queens. We were living in this terrible, huge, drafty former warehouse loft. And, you know, at the time, we were super stoked on the space. It was pretty wide open. When we first went to look at it, it had a tenant constructed, a loft. And, you know, first thing we did when we moved in was tear that motherfucking thing down because it was disgusting and a health hazard. And after we tore it down, you know, we were making false walls out of curtains and trying to make the space livable. But anyway, going back to the story of how we got Margot. So one snowy, cold December morning, there was a dog adoption event or a pet adoption event being held at a convention center in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. I had known about it. I talked to Sierra about it. And even though I knew that it was happening, I didn't really think that we were going to go get a dog. And I know Sierra had been wanting to get a dog for a little while. You know, I think when you live in New York, there are a bunch of people that have cute little dogs. I think the ideal is, you know, taking them to Madison Square Park, going to the dog parks there, looking all fancy. You know, that was the image that I had of people that own dogs in New York. And I think Sierra was on the same page as well. We went to, actually the night before was actually the very first time I saw Moon Boots at Verboten. Verboten was a much beloved dance club in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, where, you know, lots of great stuff happened, lots of terrible things happened, lots of life-changing psychedelic trips happened. And I had gone out the night before, so I was at that Moon Boots show, had a great time, came home, and Sierra, I do this thing where I wake up, where, you know, when I used to party a lot and drink, where I would wake up early, even though I was hungover, I think out of guilt. And also I was trying to prove to Sierra that I wasn't a complete fuck up, and I could still go out and I could still get stuff done the next day as well. But anyhow, so, you know, Sierra had identified this pet adoption event that she wanted to go to, and I woke up hungover, probably still drunk, face swollen like a mofo. I'll post a picture and share that with you guys here. But we get to this dog adoption event, and, you know, it was me, Sierra, Justin, my brother-in-law, and Justin's boyfriend at the time, Ian. Ian Black. And we went to this thing. I was not expecting to pick up a dog. We just went, and I was going to go pet a bunch of animals and go home and go back to sleep. But we go there, we're looking around at dogs, taking a close look at some of them. And all of a sudden, Ian points out to Justin, like, oh, look, there's a dog with monkey fur. And we go over there with Justin, and Ian spotted this little black dog. It's in the back of this little kennel, in there with a few other dogs that we had like looked at before. But she was so shy, and she was so anxious. She was this tightly curled up ball, probably weighed about less than 10 pounds at the time, of just like black curly fur that was like, the hair was really wiry, and because of the color and the texture, she really did look like a little chimpanzee hanging out in the sawdust that they had set up. And we, you know don't know the first thing about dogs, so we get over there, ask the adoption event worker if we could take a look at Margot. And when we go to look at her, she's just shaking. We pick her up. She won't stop shaking. She's so nervous. And she just had this sadness in her eyes. And, it was just like the perfect little package that made us want to take her home and take care of her. So Sierra and I, not ever having thought that we wanted a dog. I think maybe Sierra had thought about it, but I had not. End up paying a little bit of money, telling them that we're responsible human beings, which was a total lie. And we came home with little Margot. So ever since we moved away from New York, Margot's really blossomed and come to her own. When we were living in New York, we had a couple of dog friends, Ian and Chimney, owned by our good friends Gil and Luna. And even though she liked playing with Ian and Chimney, Margot would not have anything to do with the outside when we were living in New York. And we thought that was just who she was, that she was just a house dog. And when we finally moved away from New York, moved back to the Chicagoland area, and especially once we moved into our house here, she really took to the outside. The majority of her time she spent, begging to go outside to the backyard. The first thing she does as soon as we open the back door is she will sprint out the back door and do a perimeter check. And this is like a full sprint perimeter check. And after a little while, this is during the pandemic. We thought, I'm bored. We don't have anything to do. Let's see if we can teach Margot how to go outside. And so we started taking her more on more walks around our neighborhood. And soon she has come to love the daily walk schedule. So, Margot, it's been an absolute pleasure being your dog dad. Thank you for snuggling with me at night, choosing me as your favorite piece of furniture that you like to stand on. And, thank you for all the kisses and the licks. And yeah, thank you so much for being bonds. Going back to, so like I said before, this is episode number 2. The very first episode got a lot more views, a lot more listens than I was expecting. So thank you very much for tuning in. And some of the feedback that I had received, I received a lot of good feedback. And I just wanted to address one of the questions that I got. It was a comment from my friend Josh. Josh asked, what is your what and your why? And I guess at the most basic level, let me see if I can answer the what part. The what part is, this is a podcast. And why is it a podcast? It's a podcast because everyone's doing a podcast these days. And as I had touched on before, in terms of content that I personally consume and enjoy, the content that I connect to with the most, the podcasts or, long form YouTube videos, those are the types of content that I spend the majority of my time consuming, as opposed to, or no, that is the content that I am actually seeking out and consuming for my own entertainment, sense of connection, whatever that may be. And the other content that I'm looking at online is either force fed to me, aka I've come up to the trough and open up the Instagram or TikTok app, and that's one form of content that I'm not necessarily seeking out, but is presented to me. And yeah, I obviously understand the viral nature of that, but the reason why I'm doing this plays a big role in what I've decided to do here. The why goes back to the how do I put this? Actually, no. The very first why, the easiest way to answer that one is I was laid off from my job. Approximately, it's going on almost a month now, and this is something I've wanted to do for a long time, and I have the time. The majority of my time I spend. Never mind. I'll get back to this. We'll be back. Welcome back to the program. As you can see, I've upgraded a little bit. Got the candles lit, got a ring light on, feeling pretty good. Yeah. So as I mentioned before, this is episode number 2. The first episode got more views than I was expecting, which is great. Thank you very much, guys, for listening. And I just wanted to address some of the feedback that I got, which is really appreciated. And the feedback that I got was, can you delve into a little bit of the what and the why behind what it is that you're doing on this podcast? So let me start with that. So starting with the what. My podcast is modeled a lot after the content that I like to consume myself. So, I follow a lot of vloggers on YouTube. I spend a lot of time on YouTube, and I think one of the reasons why I've been compelled to participate in this social network that is YouTube is because I don't think that it's a healthy thing to just be consuming. It's got to be a two-way street, and I think that goes for pretty much everything. The type of content that I consume, as I was mentioning before, so lots of vlogs, like I'm really attracted and drawn to individuals that are very authentically themselves and talk about things that are greater than just the thing that they are doing. I like people that delve into why a lot. Some of my favorite. Let me get into that later. I also watch a lot of other podcasts on YouTube, and I actually find that it's, for me personally, one of the most enjoyable ways to enjoy a podcast. I know podcasts first came about as obviously audio only. They were first, quote unquote, invented for the iPod, and I don't know, it just makes the content more enjoyable and easier to relate to when I can see the person that is doing the talking, and I know they're not reading anything off of a script. They're not doing, they may have ulterior motives behind what it is that they're saying and why it is that they're saying it, but really, again, authenticity and genuineness really matters a lot to me. My favorite comedy podcast to listen to currently is Matt and Shane's Secret Podcast. Matt McCusker and Shane Gillis. Shout out to the dogs. And the reason I like their podcast the most is because, number one, it's hilarious, and then number two, the reason it's hilarious is because of the irreverence with which they approach, the things that they're talking about. Obviously, they're adult men, so they have to take certain things seriously. But as far as having developed a permanent judgment of things based on their experiences or what they've heard or what they've read, doesn't exist. Matt McCusker, specifically, the shaman, he is hands down one of my favorite personalities that I've encountered on the interwebs, and it's a perfect blend of boyish charm, deep understanding, surprisingly deep understanding of like psychology and a broad range of philosophies, and his ability to, despite holding all this, it may not be super deep, but like this breadth of knowledge, he is able to take that and use it to point out the fun of life. I don't know, again, the irreverence, to not care. Or irreverence doesn't mean not care. It means to not take seriously. And I think that's one of the most refreshing things as far as the media that we're seeing today. It used to be that media that was not serious was for children, and then serious media was for adults, and then comedy always existed in this weird middle space where, sure, that like the content that we're showing to kids, there's comedy for kids and there's comedy for adults. Comedy for kids is a lot more, when I was younger anyway, think of Tom and Jerry, Looney Tunes. It's a lot more slapstick humor, not as much the absurdist kind of humor. Well, no, let me take that back. Animaniacs was pretty absurdist. Anyway, I digress. I forget the point that I was trying to make. But yeah, Matt and Shane's Secret Podcast, check it out. Let me say one thing about Shane Gillis that I had random thought about the other day. So for those of you who don't know, Shane Gillis is one of the hottest comedians of the moment right now, and he has attained this stature in spite of, or maybe because of, the fallout, the insane story that unfolded with him in SNL. So a couple of years back, Shane had been doing stand-up for a little while now. His podcast with Matt had been going for a couple of years at that point as well, I believe. So there are these two parallel tracks. On one parallel track, we have Shane's stand-up career, and on this track, we have Shane's podcasting career, and they're going up and up, alongside each other. And then Shane's, showbiz career, stand-up career looks to be poised to just explode when it gets announced that he was hired as a featured cast member on an SNL. And on that very same day, Shane Gillis got fired from SNL because some dude named Seth Simons, he dug back into the material and just exposed Shane as a quote unquote racist because of some of the things and some of the jokes that he was making on the podcast. And after he got fired, Shane apologized if anybody's feelings were hurt, but he did not apologize for the content, and he didn't back down. And after going through that, this is when cancel culture was all the rage, obviously. Shane Gillis rose like a phoenix from the ashes and has become a huge megastar. And I think the thought that I had was, it reminded me of the story of Daniel in the Bible, right? Daniel's the guy who gets thrown into the lion's den by the Egyptians. Daniel in the lion's den. That is exactly what Shane Gillis had gone through when he got fired from the podcast, or when he got fired from SNL. And for all intents and purposes, he could have just given up and been like, well, I had my shot, but I screwed it up. Cancel culture got me. But he just kept going, man. And I think there's a lesson in there somewhere. You know, Shane is not the first. This is a story that happens, this is the hero's journey, right? It's in mythology. It's the way that stories are told, and it's a requirement in order for us to evolve and grow and become ourselves. So the hero's journey, it starts off, the protagonist is introduced. He is, going through life, and then tragedy strikes. And as he overcomes that tragedy, that is when he rises to the occasion and becomes the hero that stories are told about. And this is something that we go through in our own lives. And it's one of those things where you don't realize it's been done or that it's happening until you get a chance to step back and, review your life. Anything worth having is going to cost you. And when we talk about cost in today's society, obviously the first thing that comes to mind is money. And supposedly money is supposed to be delivered, or you're supposed to acquire money by sacrificing yourself by doing work. And when you're compensated for that work, you get to spend that money to buy things. The cost that I'm talking about in terms of transformations in life, successful achievements, solving of difficult problems, it really does require, some time spent just burning in the flames. And whether or not you emerge on the other side victorious, it really comes down to, at the very root of it, hope and faith that you will emerge, or that you are doing the right thing and that you will persevere. The other words that we hear a lot when we're talking about this type of situation are things like, are things that demonstrate faith and hope. Things like consistency, hard work, sacrifice. Those are all actions that people, or those are all words used to describe actions that people take as they're on their journey. This guy worked really diligently. This guy came to jiu-jitsu practice every day, twice a day for 3 years, and he got his black belt. Those are the types, those are the indicators, those are the things that we look at to see if someone is acting in faith and has hope. Hope is a huge one for me. Faith and hope, they go hand in hand. If you don't have faith, how can you possibly have hope? And I think too many of us, it can be very difficult. Obviously, some would say the most difficult thing in life is to be able to finally face yourself down and figure it out. Number one, what do I have faith in? Okay. And once you've got that defined, I think that's when hope comes into the picture, and you're able to hope for outcomes related to, or hope for outcomes that you're faithful are true, are right, are correct, are what you want. And I don't know, even though they're just comedians and they make one of my favorite podcasts, I truly do believe that their stories are of ones of bravery and courage, fueled by faith and hope. How long have I been going? 12 minutes. Faith and hope. I can, it wasn't that long ago that I can remember. I mean, I'm talking about this like as though it was a long time ago, but it wasn't. And it's an everyday process, renewing that faith and hope. And the daily practice that you have in place in order to stay connected to those things, I think is what I'm coming to learn. There's no such thing in life as a set it and forget it. And I think that's the reason why that even came up as a selling point for, what was that? The crock pot? I'm not sure. I don't think it was a crock pot. um anyhow, but there is no such thing as set and forget it. If you want something, you have to work at it or for it every single day. And I don't mean this in a Gary Vaynerchuk kind of way, but um, the consistency that is required in order to achieve anything, or to truly come to understand anything, or to really be rooted in whatever that thing is, it requires repetition. It requires sacrifice. And the reason I have a smile creeping across my face right now is because it just seems so simple, doesn't it? All you have to do is do the things that everyone's been telling you to do. It's not a secret. It's pretty clearly understood. It's just the ability to put it into practice. That's the hard part. But however, the ability to put into practice becomes even more impossible if you don't believe that to be true. If you don't believe that devotion and practice and having a singular or a really sharp focus on what it is that you're trying to get done, unless you have those things, the consistency is just not going to be there. The consistency is not just in showing up. Showing up is step one. And I think many of us get stuck in the showing up, but there's a lack of belief or a lack of true alignment to a lot of the things that we're doing on a regular basis today, that keeps it from being devotion. On the flip side of things that we're doing every day, we have things like addictions or things that we do all the time that are not serving us, that are actually detrimental to our health, both physical and mental, spiritual even. Things that we are stuck doing because we've either been told that we're supposed to be doing them, we are addicted to them, or because we're afraid to change the thing that we are continuing to do. The addiction piece it's crazy. The Ram Dass, I believe it was, talks about addiction forming as a response to trauma that we've experienced in our lives, right? There is a sense of incompleteness, of a lack of fulfillment that we are all born with, and that's just a part of the human condition. But along that path, many people they experience something, or life has treated them in such a way that they have this acute emptiness inside of them, and the habit, or the product, the action that they are addicted to temporarily fills this hole. And I think Ram Dass's point was, this hole is self-imposed. There isn't anything outside of ourselves that we need in order to feel this completeness. It just requires a coming to an understanding that in and of yourself you are complete because you are part of everything. The greatest trick that we play on ourselves is as soon as we're ejected from our mother's vaginas or cut out or however that happened to you, we feel we are physically separated from the thing that created us. And, if you are to judge just based solely on the things that you can sense, you can see, smell, touch, feel, hear, then yeah, obviously we are all individual, separate human beings. And it is that physical reality that is in opposition to the truth, which is we are all connected. Like the awareness that we each have within us. And again, here I go repeating a lot of the stuff that I say in episode 1. This awareness that we all contain, or that is contained within each of our bodies, that awareness is who we actually are. And this awareness is not, how do I put this? This awareness is a part of the collective awareness. This awareness, the awareness that we are experiencing in our bodies, springs up from that same place where everybody's unconscious springs up from, or where their awareness comes from. This awareness people call spirit, people call soul. But if you have this thing, you do have this thing in you, but if you don't realize that, and you instead spend the rest of your life just satisfying your physical needs and having that be it, where the purpose of life is just to be alive, just to stay alive, I'm afraid you're going to have a hard time finding or at least identifying with the reason that drives you to do the thing that will make you who you were born to be. I'm, going back to what I was saying before about the what and the why. Let's get into the why behind why I'm doing this. I'm not doing this because I want to become a podcaster. I'm not doing this because I want to become famous. I'm doing this because I have this understanding that, or this belief rather, that we are all one, that we're all connected. And I just want to spread this message. And, if any one person is able to identify or to come to this understanding as a result of watching any of the stuff that I'm going to be putting out, mission accomplished. I'm doing this while another part of the why is I was laid off from my job. I'm no longer a working man. I don't earn money right now. And the fact of the matter is, when that news was delivered to me, it felt like a weight was being lifted off my chest. And I think it's because deep down I know that working in that position at that company, it's not my calling, yet it was the thing that was taking up the majority of my time on this earth. The more confident I became in knowing who I was, or who I am, I am the universe just contained in this physical body. As I grew to believe that stronger and stronger, and more deeply, I think the more clear it became to me that sacrificing my time in exchange for money in that way, to that degree, it just wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it for me anymore. And I'm speaking from a position of privilege, where I do have a little bit of money to be able to get me through at least the rest of the year and a couple months after that. But in the meantime, I had to do this. I had to share myself and share my story and connect with other people who feel the same way, or inspire other people to feel the same way. Because I truly believe that this sense of unity is the only thing that is going to help steer us away from disaster. And, by disaster, I guess I'm just being a little bit dramatic there. I don't necessarily, I guess another wrinkle that I'll share with you guys is I don't think that there is anything such as good and bad. It's all subjective. Everything just is. And how you feel about a certain thing depends on where you're coming from and which side of the conflict that you're on. As for myself, the part of me that I identify with most completely, I am not on a side. Simple as. I'm only focused on what I can do to help the people around me and to provide value to solving whatever problems it is that I become aware of. And I am totally content devoting my time and my life and my energy toward that goal. I think the ability to make money, I will most likely, if we're talking odds here, I will most likely have to work as an employee for someone else in the future. The money thing is it's an undeniable fact of the reality that we're living in right now. But the thing that I believe about that, though, even still, is that it's all just a social construct and that it's not actually real. I'm playing the game that has been that I've been shot out into. I don't get to choose whether or not or what the rules of the game are. But that's just my perspective. What else? Let's see. I've been going for it's been about 30 minutes. I'll go ahead and wrap this second edition up. As you guys can see, I've moved upstairs. It's a little bit more bright, but it does require a lot more cooperation with everyone else that I live with, meaning my wife, Sierra, Margot, happy birthday, and our cat, Mookie. But yeah, please leave me any feedback if you identified with, or if any of the stuff that I was rambling about today resonated with you. Please hit me up. You can find me on Instagram. Handles @GeneralFuture, all one word. You can leave a comment in the YouTube or wherever you're listening to this. And yeah, the thing that I want more than anything else out of this is to connect with people that I know that may be listening to this, or complete strangers from across the world that are listening to this. If you agree with what I say, if you disagree with what I say, let me know. I want to hear it. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. Tune in next time for another episode of the General Future Podcast. Peace.